Tony Curtis was a famous actor who died at age 85, but his last few months were very sad. He left none of his 5 children anything in his $60 million will 4 months before he died. He left his 6th wife everything, but there is a dark truth to the reason he made that choice. Some say he was kept in line and managed. The family was already broken after years of drug abuse and bad behavior. His daughter now tells the truth about those last days. His birthday is June 3, 1925, and he was born in East Harlem, Manhattan. At that time his name wasn't Tony Curtis. His name was Bernard Schwartz. He was the oldest of 3 boys born to poor Jewish immigrants from Hungary. His parents didn't have much money to live on. They lived in a small apartment with 2 rooms above his dad's failed tailor shop. Because they didn't have much money, Bernard didn't even start learning English until he was 6 years old. There was no English for him, so he felt like a stranger in his own city. During the Great Depression, things got worse. When Bernard was 8 years old, his parents were having trouble feeding all of their kids. He and his younger brother Julius were sent to a state-run home for a month. The act wasn't meant to punish. I had to stay alive. But for a child, it was like being left alone. He was different after that short time away. He would feel like he wasn't wanted for the rest of his life. They were poor in more ways than just food and clothes. The story was about being alone and feeling like you had nowhere to turn. When Bernard was 12, a terrible thing happened. Julius, his beloved younger brother, was outside having fun with his friends. Julius had asked to play with Bernard earlier that day, but Bernard told him to go play with the other kids. He couldn't get over that choice. Julius was hit by a truck. After running to the hospital, Bernard saw him lying there, not awake. He begged him to not sleep again and to forgive him. 1 more second would do. But Julius passed away. Bernard will always remember. In the end, he said that he promised to always be a good boy if only his brother would come back. He carried that sorrow with him through success, wealth, and all 6 of his marriages. Even at home, things weren't peaceful for him. Helen, his mother, was angry and hard to predict. At the time, no one knew she had schizophrenia. If her boys didn't finish their food, she would hit them. Bernard was always scared of her. Robert, his younger brother, would end up in a hospital with the same disease. There was yelling, pain, and confusion in the house. Bernard had never felt love. He once asked, "Where are you going to go if your mother doesn't love you?" That one question told me a lot about his life. He lived in Hollywood, where he married 6 times and said he slept with over 1,000 women, but his fear and need to be loved came with him everywhere. In his heart, he was still looking for the love he never had as a child. By the time he was a teenager, Bernard was in trouble. He joined a street gang and stole little things all day instead of going to school. It wasn't just for fun. He was running away. It was better to do anything than go home. After that, something took place. He was sent to Boy Scout camp by a friend. That one thing he did changed his life. It helped him stay on track and gave him hope. But the movies were what really saved him. He would sneak into movie houses and sit for hours when he was 5 or 6 years old. He had faith in the darkness, the stories, and the heroes. Getting on Bronx roofs and acting like he was in those movies. That's when the dream began. When he was 16, he was in his first school play, and something clicked. Just maybe this kid who came from nothing could become someone. Bernard joined the Navy right after finishing from Seward Park High School in 1943. He was 18 years old. He and Cary Grant had seen the movie Destination Tokyo, which made him very angry. He got his mom's signature on something else and asked to join the submarine service. The USS Proteus is a supply ship in the Pacific. That is where they sent him. He had never been in battle, but on September 2, 1945, he saw history. He watched the Japanese officially give up in Tokyo Bay from the deck of his ship, which was only a mile away. There was no more war. He was only 20 years old. He didn't waste time when he got home. He didn't have a job lined up, so he used the GI Bill to go to the dramatic workshop in New York. This choice would change everything, but he didn't know it yet. There wasn't just any acting school at the dramatic workshop. Erwin Piscator, a famous actor who had escaped Nazi Germany, ran it. Bernard studied there with actors like Elaine Stritch, Rod Steiger and Walter Matthau, who would go on to become stars. Big names like Lee Strasberg and Stella Adler were some of his teachers. That's not all this place did, it made artists. And Bernard learned skills that would help him carry big Hollywood movies one day. Then something good happened. Ability agency Joyce Selznick saw him at a small show in Greenwich Village. She has a good eye for ability. He later made fun of the fact that she chose him because he was the most interesting. She liked him. Even if that wasn't true, he was able to meet with Universal Pictures with her help. In 1948, when he was only 23, he was on a plane going to Los Angeles. He was sitting next to Jack Warner on that trip. Warner Brothers CEO Tom Warner even offered to sign him if Universal ever let him go. Universal signed him for 7 years. His name was changed from Bernard Schwartz to Anthony Curtis because of the book Anthony Adverse and a family name Kurtz. He soon just went by the name Tony Curtis. He learned how to ride horses and fence at the studio, which helped him get ready for action parts. He told them he cared more about girls and money than art at the time, but Hollywood was just starting to make him a star. Criss Cross, which came out in 1949, was his first movie. He was only in the scene for 2 minutes as a dancer in a bar, but it was clear that he was there. Burt Lancaster was shocked as he watched him dance with Yvonne De Carlo. He didn't have a single line. He was still loved by the camera. People remembered that face, and the company saw how good he could be. After that he had a few small parts in movies like Sierra and Winchester 73, where he starred with Jimmy Stewart. In 1951, he finally got his big break with The Prince Who Was a Thief. Universal worked hard to get people to see it. It was an exciting story set in Tangier. Curtis became a main man when he was only 26 years old. People loved him. He did most of his own moves and acted with another growing star, Piper Laurie. The company put them together in 3 more movies because they worked so well together. The critics were split. Some people thought the movie was silly. Some people loved its energy, but the movie theater business told the truth. It went over well. Then the bad thing about Fame came out. Curtis fit a certain mold. He was good-looking, charming, and fit. He kept getting parts in light-action movies because of this. In 1952, Flesh and Fury tried to make that different. In a dramatic story with dark themes, he played a boxer who was deaf. Still, most of his movies at the time were not very good. Francis, Son of Ali Baba, and No Room for the Groom. He got what he could in order to put together a good show. The companies thought he was hot, but Curtis wanted more. What really changed him was when he played Houdini in a 1953 movie about the famous escape artist. He played with Janet Leigh, who is his real-life wife. He learned magic from an expert for a month, and did his own tricks. He had to sit in pools full of ice for one scene, and got ice burns from the shoot. The movie didn't stick to the facts, but it gave Curtis a chance to show how deep he is. People saw more than just his looks for the first time. Trapeze, which came out in 1956, was the next big step forward. Along with Burt Lancaster and Gina Lollobrigida, Curtis played the lead role in a high-wire circus thriller. The job required a lot of hard work. Curtis had to train to do stunts in the air, and on film he even tried the dangerous triple spin. It paid off to take the risk. It made $15.5 million at the box office, which is 3 times what it cost to make. The US and UK both thought it was one of the best-paid movies of the year. It also made Curtis seem like a real serious performer. But everything changed when the sweet smell of success hit in 1957. Curtis worked very hard to get the part of Sidney Falco, a shady press agent who is bent on getting ahead by any means possible. Universal did not want him to play the part. They were afraid it would make him look bad. He didn't give up though. In this movie, he worked with Burt Lancaster again, who played a cold and powerful newspaper writer. Critics were shocked by Curtis's performance. He talked quickly, was desperate, nasty, and smart. He was no longer playing a hero. He was portraying a real person, flaws and all. After the fact, film reviewer Pauline Kael said it was his best performance ever. The movie didn't do well at the time. People who were looking forward to a light romance lead didn't know what to think of it. But the movie holds up well over time. It's now thought of as a great movie from the 1950s. A lot of people think Curtis should have been in the running for an Oscar. In 1958, Tony Curtis hit a turning point. The Defiant Ones, which came out that year, was his most powerful performance to date. He played a racist prisoner who got away and was tied to Sidney Poitier's character. The film was honest and brave, and Curtis showed that he could handle important work. On September 27, 1958, it came out. In June, it was shown at the Berlin Film Festival, where Poitier won the Silver Bear for Best Actor. The movie was up for 9 Oscars, including Best Picture. Even though both Curtis and Poitier were up for Best Actor, David Niven won for both of them. It cost $778,000 to make, but it made $2.75 million in rentals in the US and Canada. Curtis showed who he really was outside of movies too. He was adamant that Poitier should be given equal credit above the title. That move changed the course of events. He was the first black actor to be named for Best Actor. In the movie, their relationship was so strong that it moved Stanley Kramer, who directed it. Poitier told her later, "You didn't have to worry about whether Tony could stand up to me. He is, and I can feel it." After a year, Curtis was back in the news with Some Like It Hot, but it was a nightmare to make. Marilyn Monroe was tough to work with because she was always late, nervous and drunk. Curtis dated her for a short time in 1949, which made things worse. The filming took 29 days longer than planned and cost $500,000 more than planned. When Curtis was angry, he once said that kissing Monroe was like kissing Hitler, which he probably wishes he hadn't said. Wilder, the director, said Monroe was her own worst enemy. "Monroe didn't give me any trouble." Monroe had a fight with Monroe. It took Curtis and Jack Lemmon hours of drag work to get ready for their parts. Lemmon even got a rash that wouldn't go away from the nylon tights and girdle. It was first shown in Los Angeles on December 16, 1958. Monroe had a miscarriage on the same day, later said it was because of the stress of shooting. Her helper remembered finding her passed out on the floor with vomit all over her face after she took too many pills. The movie was finished in spite of everything, and it became a classic. Curtis played another dangerous part in the 1960 movie Spartacus. Antoninus, a slave who works for Crassus, played by Laurence Olivier, was his role. At the time, it was unheard of for a movie scene to imply that Crassus was gay. The famous bath scene with the snails and oysters broke rules. A group that watches movies for the Catholic Church said it should be cut. The two of them fought to keep it. They only got one take. After many years, the scene was fixed up in 1991. He was no longer alive. This is how Anthony Hopkins dubbed his voice, played back his own lines. After that, he said that Stanley Kubrick was his best director, and that he was a genius at working with players. The movie took a lot of work, and Curtis did well among giants. He played the lead role in The Great Imposter in 1961. He played Ferdinand Demara, a real person who faked almost 30 jobs, such as being a surgeon. It made $3 million at the box office, and Curtis's mix of comedy and sadness made people love it. Critics said he did a great job of playing Demara, even though he didn't look anything like her. Demara's surgery on 19 troops before she was caught, which was one of the craziest parts of the story. Demara wasn't bad, which Curtis did well in the part. He was just a man seeing how far he could go in a world that only cared about titles. There was no loss of charm in Curtis's act. He went deep, but by the middle of the 1960s, Curtis was mostly making light comedies. In Sex and the Single Girl, he played a newspaper writer who wasn't who they said they were to get information about a famous psychologist. The movie didn't hold up over time. It only made $6,490 when it came out again in France, in 2002. After that, The Great Race came out in 1965. At that time it cost a lot of money to make. Still, it didn't make it into the top 10 for the year in the US. It was number 1 for 2 weeks in October. Since 1961, Curtis has had his own production business. He wants to take charge of his job. He made at least 8 sitcoms between 1964 and 1967. These parts made him money, but they were bad for his image. Folks no longer thought of him as a serious actor, and they thought he was just coasting through mindless sex comedies. His earlier work in The Defiant Ones and Sweet Smell of Success seemed like a long time ago. After that came The Boston Strangler. In 1968, it was a major return to form. Albert DeSalvo was the real-life killer who killed 13 women in Boston, and Curtis played him. He changed the way he looked by putting on makeup, dark glasses and body padding. People barely knew who he was. Scenes with split screens showed both the killer and the police probe. Curtis didn't show up until almost the middle of the movie. He owned the screen when he did. Some reviewers said it was his best show ever. Roger Ebert said Curtis was better than he thought he would be. One review said he was awfully good at playing a man who seemed normal but had a horrible side. Even though critics gave the movie good reviews, it didn't do very well at the box office. It was clear that Hollywood didn't notice that Curtis had once again shown how good an actor he was. Tony Curtis did more than just do movies and TV shows. He lived many of them, and each one was more exciting than the last. By the early 1970s, Curtis was no longer a big star in movies, so he made the brave move to TV. Together with Roger Moore, he made The Persuaders in 1971. It was a very expensive action comedy that cost an amazing £100,000 per episode. The same as about £1.8 million today. They filmed in Britain, France, Italy and Spain, combining the cool American style of Curtis with the cool British style of Moore. But in the US the show was doomed from the start because ABC put it after Mission Impossible. People in the US didn't care. Even so, the show was a huge hit all over Europe, especially in France, Germany, Sweden, Russia, and Italy. Fans watched it for many years. In fact, Curtis and Moore won awards in France and Germany for their work. Curtis tried again in 1975 with the movie McCoy, in which he played a stylish con artist with a gambling problem who used complicated tricks to beat bad guys and get back stolen money. It looked and felt like The Sting on TV. The team was strong, a great story, well-known directors, and co-stars like Roscoe Lee Brown. But it wasn't strong enough to beat big names like Columbo or McCloud. NBC ended the show after only one pilot and 4 long episodes. It was over before it even started. It wasn't easy for Curtis. In 1978, he came back with Vega, where he played Slick Roth, a slick gambling boss. Curtis felt right at home in Las Vegas, where the show took place. He was in 17 shows over the course of 3 seasons, giving the screen a real Las Vegas attitude. He was praised by many. Fans knew Tony Curtis would be smooth, funny and cool, and he was all of those things. Curtis was still shining under bright lights and palm trees, while many of his old movie friends were going away. In the 1980s and 1990s, he didn't have many movie parts, but he still made a lot of noise. He was nominated for an Emmy in 1980 for his role as director David O. Selznick in The Scarlett O'Hara War. In the same year he was in The Mirror Crack with Kim Novak. In the movie Insignificance, he played a nervous senator, and in real life, he played mobster Sam Giancana in Mafia Princess. But Curtis hit a wall in 1984. He went to the Betty Ford Clinic to deal with drink and drug problems. He didn't put down the paintbrush after that. There was less acting in the background. He showed up here and there in the 1990s, like in the independent film Naked in New York in 1993. When Spartacus came out again in 1991, it got him some new attention, especially for a bath scene with Laurence Olivier that had been edited before. Curtis had moved on though. He began to work on art more than acting. By the 2000s he loved drawing more than anything else. He kept acting from time to time, and at age 77, he went on tour with a play version of Some Like It Hot. He played Osgood Fielding, the figure who reportedly said, "Nobody's perfect." He played parts of himself on TV shows like Roseanne and Lois and Clark, which made his roles more meta. He was the host of the show Hollywood Babylon, from 1992 to 1993. The show was about shocking events in Hollywood history. He was honest about where his heart was at that point. He said, "I still make movies, but I'm not that interested in them anymore. I paint all the time though." He got ideas for his surrealist art from Picasso and Van Gogh. The Metropolitan Museum of Art even showed some of it. He painted until the day he died, September 29, 2010. but there was a lot of chaos in her personal life behind all the glitz. His marriage to actress Janet Leigh in the beginning was like a fairy tale. Executives at the studio tried to stop it because they were afraid it would hurt his career. In 1951, he married her anyway, and Jerry Lewis was there to watch the event. Jamie Lee Curtis was one of their 2 children. But in 1955, everything broke. He found a letter to Lee from someone else. Their fight was so loud that people next door could hear it. Lee said he hadn't had an affair, but the trust was gone. Curtis told me that Janet didn't need me no matter what I was. In public, they stayed married for 7 more years, but in their hearts, it was over. Things got worse in 1961. While making Taras Bulba in Argentina, Curtis, who is 36 years old, fell in love with Christine Kaufman, who is 17. There was clear and disturbing energy between them. The connection was kept secret, while the movie was being made because she was only a girl. Curtis left his wife and children. When the show stopped in early 1962, Kaufman and he lived together in Europe until she turned 18. After that, they went to the United States. As of September, he was no longer married to Lee. She married someone else the next day. Her new marriage went on for more than 40 years. It broke my heart even more when Lee showed up out of the blue. Welcome to the Taras Bulba set. Curtis and Kaufman were with each other when she got there. People who saw her said she turned pale and got sick right there. That was it. It was public embarrassing. And the end. Curtis didn't even try to hide it. She was destroyed at that time. Their fall was also helped a lot by Curtis's jealousy. Even though he cheated on Lee, he always said she was having affairs. Curtis became so scared of her while she was shooting The Manchurian Candidate with Frank Sinatra that he hired private agents to follow her. He didn't care that they didn't find anything. He thought what he wanted to think. Later, their daughter Jamie Lee said that his passion made everything bad. In fact, he said she slept with delivery guys. He was sleeping nearby at the same time. Jamie Lee said she didn't know her dad very well when she was a kid, and that she couldn't fix their broken marriage, even when she was a kid. He got married 6 times. After getting divorced from Lee, he married Kaufman when she turned 18 in 1963. They were married for 2 years and had 2 girls before they broke up in 1968. He married model Leslie Allen that same year. They had 2 boys, William and Nicholas. Nicholas died at age 23 from taking too much heroin. He married Andrea Savio again from 1984 to 1992, but some people say it wasn't even real. He married Lisa Deutsch in 1993. That was over in just 1 year. So in 1998, when he was 73 years old, he married Jill Vandenberg, a lingerie model who was 31 years old. The difference in age, 42 years. When asked why he married someone so young, he said, "I'd never be caught dead with a woman that society thought was old enough to be my wife." They were married until he died. She got a lot of his money from him. The world was shocked by Jamie Lee Curtis. When she said she had done drugs with her dad, Tony Curtis, like cocaine and freebase drugs. She didn't use unclear words or make reasons to hide. She said, "I did cocaine and freebased once with my dad." Even though it only happened once, that one moment showed how long the Curtis family has had problems with drugs. Jamie's journey to drug abuse started in a quiet way. She was given painkillers after a small plastic surgery in 1989 to fix her swollen eyes. It began slowly, but after a few years she was hiding pills, taking from her sister Kelly, and living 2 lives at the same time. In retrospect, she said she lied and stole. She used, but no one knew. No one thought the happy star was going downhill. In February 1999, things began to change. Jamie walked into her first meeting for self-help. He was shocked when she told him the truth that night. No longer a secret. After that, she began keeping track of every clean day. In February 2024, she had been sober for 9,125 days, which is 25 years. She was happy and honest when she posted about the big event on Instagram. But there was pain behind her happiness. The kind of pain that had been passed down from parent to child. 1994 was the worst year for that pain. Nick Curtis, Jamie's half-brother, died after taking too much heroin. He was only 23 years old. What was left of the family was crushed by his death. Later, Jamie said that addiction had ruined the lives of many people in her family. Things were already tense at the time. Tony Curtis had 6 kids, but only Jamie was still talking to him. The other people had broken up. Nicholas's death was more than sad. She saw what could have happened to Jamie if she hadn't stopped. It was a notice. It kept coming back to haunt her, but in many ways it saved her. She stayed clean because of her sadness. Getting clean was the most important thing she had ever done, she said. More important than her marriage. Bigger than being a mom. More important than her job. Things didn't start to go badly in the family with Jamie or Nicholas, though. Tony was the first one. He was a big deal in Hollywood. Things were going badly at home though. He fought drinking. He used drugs. He had many women, just like he changed jobs. He got married 6 times, one after the other. Jamie once said that 13 divorces had happened in her direct family. 13. She wrote, "I have often struggled with the idea of love," next to a picture of her parents Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh. It was all in that one line. Her view of relationships was shaped by the fact that they were always ending. There have been nasty custody fights and failed promises. Tony was sober for a short time. For 3 years he tried to make things right by going to AA groups. It didn't last though. Jamie herself said that. It didn't stay. And no amount of healing during that time was enough. It was too late when he died in 2010 at age 85. He had a heart attack and died, but years of drug abuse and lung problems were what killed him. One of Tony's wives, Leslie Allen, also joined the chaos. Even though not much is known for sure about her drinking, the problems in the Curtis family over custody suggest something more serious. In the end, Jamie would say that addiction ran in her whole family. It changes everything when it goes that deep. Who will take care of the kids? Who can be trusted? Who stays? Who's going? Courts often use tracking services like SoberLink to make sure a parent is sober before letting their child spend time with them in situations like hers. That's how trust gets broken. That's how love feels when addiction is taking over. Tony Curtis did something no one saw coming in May 2010, just 4 months before he died of a heart attack. The Hollywood star changed his will when he was 85 years old and left none of his $60 million estate to any of his 5 living children. One of the most famous people in Hollywood is his daughter and movie star Jamie Lee Curtis. They weren't left out of the new will. It named all of them and made it clear that they would not get anything. He just said in the last line that he was cutting them out on purpose, with no other information or reasons given. He left everything to his 6th wife Jill, who was 42 years younger than him. Tony's health was getting worse at the time of this sudden change, which shocked everyone. Up to that point, his children had been given an equal share of his fortune. Due to the very specific legal wording used in the new will, the disinheritance was almost impossible to fight in court. "I acknowledge the existence of my children, and have purposely and fully chosen not to provide for them," he wrote. Any claims that they were left out by mistake were shot down by that one line. His daughter Allegra told everyone about it because she was upset and confused. In an interview in 2011, she gave a strong hint that Jill had been responsible for the change. She said, "I don't need to say her name, but everyone knew who she meant." She said it didn't seem like her